That's another myth. It's like, oh, you hit menopause, you can't build any more muscle, you're done. Absolutely wrong. You can and you will with a good regimen in place. Women need to be in charge of their own health because we've been dismissed for so long. We have a lot of catching up to do. If your provider blows you off or says, listen, no, you're too young, that's where you say, thank you so much, and you go elsewhere. Women tend to live years longer than men. Unfortunately, we live those years in poorer health than men. So the goal here is to improve our health span. So if I'm going to live longer, darn it, I want to be healthier at it. I mean, listen, we're all going to go through menopause, right? Like if you're born with an ovary, you're going to go through it. The question I have is, how do you want to go through it?
Hi, guys, and welcome back to the Thick Thighs Save Lives podcast. I know I've brought you some great guests before. Thank you, besties. I'm so happy to bring you today's guest because her work is so important and you guys are going to absolutely love this episode. I have Dr. Jila Senemar with me today, who is a menopause specialist, board-certified OBGYN, and also a longevity physician, which I love when those two worlds intersect, women's health and longevity. And you are the best of the best in this field. And I cannot wait for our listeners to hear all of your wisdom. So thank you for being here.
Of course. Thank you for having me. I mean, this is a conversation that I think everybody should be hearing and, taking the information and applying it to their own health and wellness journey because as you know, we hear so much. We're all bombarded with this on social media, everywhere. And you really don't know, where do I go with this? Who do I listen to? What supplement do I buy? What do I do? And does all of this pertain to me or not? Or how do you kind of sift through everything that you're seeing out there and, going with that? And so for me, it only made sense for women's health to have a longevity side to it, right? Everything is interrelated. We're not just our reproductive organs and that's it. Everything's kind of connected and tied together from head to toe. And unless you approach it that way, I don't think you're getting the best care that you should be searching for, especially now that we've kind of opened up Pandora's box and everyone's hearing it, everyone's experiencing it, and women are dialing into their bodies and their symptoms and they want to know more and they want to know, what can I do at 30? What can I do at 40? So that the 50s and 60s and 70s aren't as bad as everyone's making them out to be. So this is why these conversations speak to my heart and why I love having these podcasts and episodes and speaking engagements, because the more we talk, the more somebody else is going to hear and learn from it.
Couldn't agree more. You've been doing this for 20 years, and I have to ask you because it wasn't always that you could be bombarded with information on women's health. It used to be that, you asked your sister's grandmother's cousin and she was like, yeah, you got to sleep with a fan. That's just how it is. And there just wasn't the amount of, we weren't discussing menopause. We weren't discussing women's hormonal health. We weren't discussing sexual issues for women. And now it seems like, as you mentioned, Pandora's box has really opened here. Are you blown away by the last few years, how much women are finally being able to gain access to information about their own reproductive health?
I think it was about time. About time. I say that a lot because, like you mentioned, I have been, being taking care of women since 1999. So I went into this field a long, long time ago. And I have watched women through different parts of their reproductive journeys, right? So I've had them when they were 18, then when they got married, delivered all their babies, and now they're in their 40s, and they were coming to me with questions and concerns and didn't know where to turn. And go back 10 years ago, we weren't having these conversations. They weren't there. Even though women were experiencing them, we weren't giving them the terminology. We didn't have all the, the data was there. So that's been there. We just weren't looking at it. And being myself, I'm an OBGYN. Very busy, thriving practice with other partners and delivering babies in the middle of the night and operating all day long and seeing 35, 40 patients a day. Was it on my radar? Not necessarily, not the way it should have been, right? And it took a few of these patients of mine that kept coming back and forth and a personal journey where I was like, something's missing and we're not addressing this. We're just kind of pushing it off. Like, it is life. It is stress. Yeah, we all have it. But why am I not managing it better now where I did before? So what's that missing piece? Like, what's going on? Nothing's changed. Then the weight part starts happening, right? Where you start gaining weight. You used to go on vacation, gain 5 pounds, 10 pounds. You'd come home, watch what you ate and worked out, and you would lose it. It's not happening the same. And the weight keeps piling on, a pound or two here. All of a sudden, you go to put on a clothing outfit and it doesn't fit. And you're like, wait, something changed. So a lot of these things were happening. I was experiencing them. So it was kind of like the perfect storm where I was like, okay, I got to figure this out. This isn't okay. And there has to be more. And so I started researching, looking, talking, and, social media was starting to bubble up, and it was right around COVID. So we all had a little extra time on our hands. And lo and behold, you go down the rabbit hole. And I was like, oh my gosh, there is something called the Menopause Society. And oh my gosh, there is a book and this and that. And let me dig in, because I was one of the doctors who was in training when the Women's Health Initiative study was reported and when everything kind of went haywire. Overnight, we were told no more hormones for anybody. And to be fair, at the time, you're a young resident, I'm sleep deprived. So what do I care? I'm like, okay, you know what? I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. My attendings are telling me this. You put faith and trust in who you're working with.
100%.
And the system. So I just kind of let it be. And now fast forward, all these years later, I'm like, wait, but we dropped the ball. We've dropped the ball big time on women. And then no one now has the time with a practice like that to go out and learn. And I was like, well, I'm going to make the time because I owe it to myself and to my patients to do better. We can't just be, content with whatever it is. And I went to other people in my community and I said, I think there's a conversation here. And they're like, no, we don't think it's big enough. And I said, you don't, I do, because I had already started traveling and going to the Menopause Society meetings and other things. And I was seeing my colleagues and the word was getting out. There was a documentary coming, all of this. And I was like, no, there's something here. And I'm going to stick with these people and take it back to my community. And so it became a passion project. I was like, I owe it to my community, to my patients to do this. That was 3-4 years ago now. And I just went full blast. Like I was traveling every other weekend somewhere. And when I wasn't, I was here working. And at the time, I remember I was delivering and doing everything. And so I was like, the days were really getting long for me because, as you know, a menopause conversation is not a 10, 15-minute visit. And I can't cut off somebody. Like if they're sitting there and I finally get them to recognize what's happening, I couldn't just cut them off. I was like, no, we're going to talk about this. Then comes the education part where now you have to educate them about hormones, remove the myths that have been out there for 23 years and say, listen, it's not going to give you breast cancer. It's not going to give you a heart attack or a stroke. If you're the right candidate, these things are bioidentical. And all of the things that we need to walk through in order for an individual to walk out of my office comfortable initiating these therapies. And then sure enough, in 2 months, they come back and they're like, oh my gosh, my life has changed. Like,
I
right?
I mean, that is every little thing. And I really enjoyed hearing your journey from, all the way from resident that just went, all right, whatever. Okay, you guys, if there's no more hormone therapy, then all right. I haven't slept in 900 years. And all the way to, you know what? She needs a lot more than 10 minutes with me because we got a whole bunch to do here. And that is just an unbelievable journey. And it speaks to your passion for individualized healthcare, for your patients and them feeling their best. It's really, really inspiring. Now, your work is primarily in women's health and hormones, but we do have a bit of a new player. And I first got introduced to you through an article that you wrote on GLP-1s and women's hormones, because these two worlds have now intersected. And a lot of the symptoms that women are encountering have to do with weight gain. And so we need to really be able to sort of merge these worlds in a way that makes sense. And that is why I was so excited to talk to you today, because I'm wondering about how these come together. Like, do women's body, first of all, with regards to hormones, do women's bodies respond the same as men's bodies when it comes to a GLP-1 drug?
So there's variation in each person's body. And remember, right now we have two category of GLP-1 medications. We have
Right.
the original, which attacks one receptor site, and then we have tirzepatide, or the second generation, and the third generation is on the rise and is going to be at the FDA hopefully in the new year, and we'll have access to that, which the studies are very promising on retatrutide. And people are getting it on the gray market, if you want to call it. And they're like, I'm on Retta. And so they're very proud of that fact. But, tirzepatide works just as well. And, you don't have to get it compounded. It's, FDA controlled medication. So I think what it is with these medications is a lot of people, unfortunately, these have been out forever. Like, we've had these medications. This is not new. They have been used by endocrinologists in diabetic patients for 10, 15 years. So they're not a new thing. They're not a new player. The way they are being used is newer, right? And unfortunately, I always say this, Hollywood gets a hold of everything before the general population does. And that could be good or bad. They can bring, visibility to it, but they can also do it in a negative manner where you see Ozempic face and you see people who are overweight and all of a sudden 2 months, they look completely different. And so that is the misconception around these medications. I think in midlife women specifically, there is a role for them to have this conversation with them, because as we go through our hormonal shifts, there is an insulin resistance component that is estrogen dependent. So you cannot, separate
Is
them
that
from one
is
another.
that the weight gain that
Yeah, the
women
weight
are
gain,
seeing, that the
the midlife.
unexplained, I didn't do anything different, I eat exactly the same, I exercise exactly the same, and all of a sudden,
Mhm. Because it's visceral fat versus subcutaneous fat, right? So sub-Q is right under the skin, the one that you can get rid of quickly. This is visceral, meaning it's around your organs. It's more dangerous because it does lead to disease down the road. So it can lead to prediabetes, cardiovascular disease. So that's where the longevity side of women's care comes into play. Is we want to prevent disease. We don't want to wait for you to have it and then treat it, which is the way we were trained to do things, right? Conventional medicine is reactive medicine. You wait for a problem, and then we know how to write a prescription and fix it. But what if you go back a decade and avoid it? What if you look at biomarkers that can really slowly show you that, hey, on a cellular level, there's something brewing here. So why don't you address it? And that looks like having those unsexy conversations about lifestyle, which nobody wants to have. We'd rather take a shot or take a pill and do something easier. And so really, when I have this discussion with my patients, it's about, let's look at your lifestyle first. So I don't just hand out GLP-1s. It's a matter of, we're having a conversation. What are my priorities with you today? And what are we going to attack first? And lifestyle, really, we all think we have it in tuned in, but we don't. We try, but are you really getting the right amount of protein that you're supposed to be getting? Are you getting 30 plus grams of fiber per day? Are you hydrating? And what about your exercise regimen? Is it truly what we think it should be, which is 2 to 3 days strength training with increasing weight, not just strength training, but are we increasing the load on your joints and your muscles to build more muscle? Because muscle is going to burn those calories. Muscle is going to keep you healthy and keep your heart healthy and moving. So all of these are tied together. So until I have that tuned in with my patient, now they do that and they come back to me in 3 to 6 months and we redo their in-body to check their body composition, because a weight isn't going to tell me anything. A weight is just a number.
You said that.
Right? We need composition. We need fat versus muscle. You need all of these factors to really look at the overall picture. And then we've done everything, she's tried everything, and we're still stuck. And I see some underlying biomarkers show insulin resistance happening slowly. Then I'm not going to wait for it to full on hit prediabetes to be like, now let's treat you. We have a conversation about GLP-1s, set expectations, because I'm not going to give it to you unless you work out and do everything, because then you're going to lose the wrong thing. You'll lose the weight. You'll feel like the numbers going down. But when I check your body composition, if we've lost muscle, then we're defeating our purpose of making you live longer. So there's a lot of conversations there, but the data supports midlife women who are on hormone therapy that's optimized. You add a GLP-1 to their regimen, they tend to lose more weight and they tend to be healthier long term. We have this information. The research has been published over and over again in the endocrinology journals.
Wow. So, okay, so you discussed a little bit of the role estrogen kind of plays in insulin and the potential for a drop in estrogen to signal a drop in insulin or a resistance. What about muscle mass? Now, we know that as estrogen drops and as we age, it becomes a little bit harder to both maintain and put on muscle mass. But when we talk to women who are considering GLP-1s, the major, I think, what has now become mainstream is that a really huge goal, if you want to go that route, is to maintain muscle mass. And you did mention that. So how is the HRT working with the GLP-1 to maintain that really important muscle mass that we need for the end goal, as you said, which is simply to live longer and better?
Better, yeah. So with the muscle, right, we peak bone and muscle around our 30s. And we need to continue building, and we can. And that's another myth. It's like, oh, you hit menopause, you can't build any more muscle, you're done. Absolutely wrong. You can and you will with a good regimen in place. It's very simple, but it isn't. It's that darn protein intake. It is the cornerstone of everything. And I really make like little plans for my patients. I'm like, listen, 30, 30, 30 at every meal. Let's just play with that. That's 90 already. Okay. Then let's add in a couple of little snacks with 10 to 20 grams of protein in there. You're already over 110, 120 grams of protein per day. I don't go to the 0.8 gram per kilogram deal. That's to maintain the muscle you have. You really want to build, it's between 1 and 1.2, some say even higher, grams per kilogram. So to make it easy for my patients, I even have like a protein powder that tastes like lemonade, and it's 22 grams of protein in that. You don't even have to make a shake out of it. You just dump it in water and you drink it, and that's 22 grams of protein and tastes darn good. So little tricks like that will help them not only keep, but build muscle as well as the resistance training. The hormone therapy directly, does it impact muscle mass? No, but it will help you maintain what you have and allow you to keep building. And to be honest with you, I've checked it on my younger patients and my older patients. Yes, 20, 30-year-old, they can build muscle in 2 seconds. So in a month, I bring them back and their muscle mass already went up. In my older patients, they're still building, just the trajectory is a little slower. But what I can tell you is women love data. When I show them their in-body and their body composition changes going up, they're happy. They're like, Doc, I'm going to keep doing what you told me because it's working. So really the proof is showing them that. And, they go to their physical therapist and they're like, wow, your legs are really strong. They're like, see, I told you I was building muscle. So it's really behooves us as providers to have these deeper conversations with our patients, because at the end of the day, was I really doing this as an OBGYN? I didn't have the time. I had the knowledge, but I didn't have the time to really dig deep with my patients. And now having shifted over, this is what I do all day long, is have these deeper conversations.
That's so incredibly rewarding.
We're going to take a quick break to get you a whole bunch of friends.
Do you like Friends?
We have about 80,000 amazing women friends, more than that, in one space that can't wait to cheer you on in your fitness journey.
Whether it's lifting you up, getting you motivated to get to the gym, complimenting your outfit, we have gathered 80,000 of the best women on the planet and put them all in one place for your friendship pleasure.
Honestly, I would just pull out some of the amazing quotes from the group because you would think groups like this, you're like, I don't know. And I'm telling you, once you enter in the door, the virtual door, because you can do this anywhere, that you will find the most supportive community you have ever known. And it's called Stronger Together by CVG. You can find us on a Facebook group. It's a closed group, women only. And you got to get in there.
Get in there. It's so inspiring. Join us today. I hear you. We always say on the podcast, cutting the grass while the house is on fire is an immense mistake and disservice to yourself. We have to start from the biggest game changers and then we kind of work our way up. And I hear you echoing the same sentiment, making sure that your exercise and your protein and your nutrition are all in the correct trajectory, and then sort of getting to that top tier of okay, what can we add? What is still needed here? We have a little bit of new and emerging research on treatment of hormone imbalances with women with GLP-1s. Are you seeing can you discuss okay, so we know perimenopause, we're seeing some hormone balance with GLP-1s. PCOS, other hormone imbalances in women beyond just a significant drop in estrogen. What are GLP-1s doing to help balance that out?
So I'm glad you brought that up because PCOS, which has now been renamed PMOS, right? One little letter change, but it's a big change because kind of goes
the gaslighting has ended.
Yeah. About time. Again, I say these things over and over, but they're kind of like my standard because over the years, again, I don't know, I've delivered 5,500 babies. So that I know, but how many women have I treated? I really don't know. Over the 24-year span of my career, I'll never forget at the beginning, I would see a lot of younger patients with what we used to call PCOS. And I remember looking at it, and I'm like, but I think there's something else going on. But why are we just giving them birth control pills and telling them to move on? And then it later came, add in metformin. So why am I adding in metformin? What is that doing? But that is an insulin resistance medication. So what? See, so we even knew it, but we didn't know it, right? So then it wasn't until a couple of my patients were like, Doc, I want to be natural about this. I don't want to go on anything. And I was like, let's walk the walk together. Okay, let's figure it out. I knew weight loss had something to do with it. I was like, if they lose the weight, their cycles start regulating again. Look at that. So I was like, let's lose weight, 5 to 10%, nothing crazy, just bring it down a little bit. Within 6 months, they'd come back to me and they're like, I lost the weight and my periods are back. I was like, interesting. Okay, so again, doing self-research, and I was like, I think this is more metabolic. And so we're catching it at the tail end of the cascade, which is the reproductive part. So the problem really started with metabolic problems, right? On a cellular level, elevated androgens, elevated cortisol, which then led to insulin sensitivity problems. We didn't catch it that early. We caught
So
it.
this was just the end, the
Result.
symptom at the very end of the road,
Correct.
and we didn't go back to
Root cause.
wow.
We didn't go to root cause. And what do? We were putting 17, 18-year-olds with PCOS on birth control pills to suppress everything. Then later in their 30s, they're trying to have kids. They still can't because they have infertility problems because we never fixed the root cause problem. Which is why a lot of my reproductive endocrinology colleagues right now are using GLP-1 in these patient population. Why? We're fixing the metabolic side, and then all of a sudden, lo and behold, they're ovulating.
It was never a reproductive problem in the beginning. This is very much blowing my mind. You talked a little bit about visceral fat, and you kind of discussed what it is. Just a reminder that it is a different kind of fat surrounding the organs, and a significantly more dangerous fat, strongly linked to disease, strongly linked to early death. Is the main reason that GLP-1s are making people live longer and healthier due solely to visceral fat loss, or are there other factors here?
There's a lot of different factors happening, because the two biggest things, even in women, right? Our number one cause of mortality is heart disease, right? We all think it's cancer, but it isn't actually. It's heart disease is number one. Osteoporotic fractures, number two. Okay. Dementia, and then cancer. So those are our risks of death. We all, like I said, women come to me and I'm like, what do you think is going to kill you first? And they're like, cancer. And I said, actually, it's your heart. So what GLP-1s do are helping your metabolic and your cardiovascular system stay healthier. So if you don't develop diabetes and you don't develop high blood pressure and cardiovascular disease, you're going to live longer, healthier. Right now, we have health span, lifespan. We all live longer. That's our lifespan. That's just a number of years you're going to live. Women tend to live 5 to 7 years longer than men. Overall, we have that data. Unfortunately, we live those years in poorer health than men. So our health span has shortened. So the goal here is to improve our health span. So if I'm going to live longer, darn it, I want to be healthier at it. And what do? These are the mechanistic things that we can put into place earlier, prevent the disease. That way, in your 70s and 80s, you're functional and you're capable and you have vitality. You're not just living to live another day.
I can't tell you how refreshing it is to speak to the amount. I feel so privileged to speak to the amount of longevity physicians that I do, because it's such a refreshing take on healthcare that previously I think we all knew that that's what we wanted, was to prevent rather than to treat. But it was so hard to put it in words, and it was so difficult to find a provider doing that. So I just, the whole journey of not just living longer, of living better every single day that's everything. Let's talk about microdosing for a second, because we have these studies showing these metabolic factors, and we know we need to protect our heart, and we know that there are some hormone balancing aspects to this medication. Is there a situation in which you would see someone with maybe a body fat percentage that you did not feel was worthy of a GLP-1, microdose and see benefits from that?
So I think it's very individualized, and these medications are being used and trialed in different manners right now as we speak. The term microdosing really comes from using the lowest dosage. And it kind of got a misnomer because it was like, well, I'm using half of the lowest dose. That's the microdose. It's just what the FDA wasn't studying. So the research that was given to the FDA and all of that was on these standardized doses. So now we're using below those doses. That's really all it is. And you have some women who don't tolerate medications at standardized dosing. So what do? They're just not a candidate. But what if you can trial them on a lower dose and they actually respond and don't have this negative side effects? So it takes somebody who's worked with these medications long enough to be able to make these distinctions. Otherwise, any med spa is handing this out right now. But is that the safe route to go? Probably not, because they may overdose, they may not do the right things, they may not take the right lab work. And then this can lead to other GI problems, long-term problems, like they can have pancreatitis or they can have, liver problems or things like that. Or, if they don't drink enough water, they're going to have really bad constipation issues. So it's not just about using them, it's about using them correctly. And each woman, let's say that woman who comes in who's leaner than what we typically see, if I see she has inflammatory biomarkers happening, we may have a conversation about it. And you can check that on blood work. And you can pick things up where you're like, well, there is some inflammation happening here. Maybe, we can change diet. And if still that doesn't help, then maybe we can consider this. And the other part of the conversation is people ask me, am I going to be on this for the rest of my life? And that's something that we'd have to determine as we go along. Some need it because they've struggled with weight all their life. And as we know, weight, obesity, it's not a willpower problem. It is an absolute disease that's actually in the brain because your eating satiety centers are all centered here. Why do these medications work? They work here. They work here to rewire everything. So some people are going to need it. And what I do with that patient is monitor them very closely, obviously. And then when we get to the goal weight and where they're happy and where they're doing all their things lifestyle-wise, we stay on the lowest dose and then we kind of titrate out and see how they do. Others, like in midlife, these women have never really had weight issues. It's just that 10, 15 pounds that piles on them. And they're like, can we just do this for a little bit and let me see how I feel on it? And I do that with them. And then afterwards, they're like, I really don't want to take it. I say, we can try. Let's take you off and see how you do. And most of them maintain because, again, they already had the diet, the nutrition. They had that in place. This was just kind of an aid to get them to the next part, and they are maintaining now. So they're very nuanced conversations that need to be had with a provider who can give you this. Am I an endocrinologist? I am not, but have I studied it enough on my own to know? Yeah, I'm not going to prescribe something that I'm not familiar or comfortable with. And I know the ins and outs of it. Okay, so I know if I give too much or too little, you need to be well versed in that in order to really safely prescribe something.
I love that you said about how nuanced and individualized this is, because when, drugs become readily available on the compound pharmacy market, it can be difficult to navigate what's for you, what's not for you. It really worked for her. It's a really, really important thing. And I hope that everybody is hearing how individualized a treatment plan that is going to help you be the best you truly is. And it's not a one size fits all. And you mentioned some blood work. So if a woman is going to go into her OBGYN and she has some symptoms potentially of perimenopause or some symptoms that might point to a hormonal imbalance or an issue there, what is the blood work that you're doing? Is that the standard typical panel that every woman is getting, or do we need to be asking for more?
Yeah, no, it's definitely not standard. I started with the standard and I kept adding and adding. I'll never forget, my partners were like, "What are you checking all this stuff for?" I'm like, "Well, that's for your heart and that's for this." So my panel has actually expanded. Now, mind you, there are all different ways of going about this. Quest Diagnostics does it. They have it. You can run a lot of this through your insurance if it's coded correctly by your provider. So weight gain, inflammation, all of these things can be a marker. And so you can really use your insurance to cover all of this. Now, are they going to cover it every month? Probably not. So, but at least you can get a baseline with them. The other fun part is Function Health has come out with biannual lab testing that includes everything that I do and a few others actually. And it's quite reasonably priced and it's for 2 times a year. So you don't just get one set. They do it and then 6 months later you get to repeat it again. So it takes you, listen, I have all this stuff on my website and I even put it on, I have links for all the labs and everything that I run. It's your basic metabolic panel. It's an expanded hormone panel, an expanded thyroid panel. And then I add cardiovascular biomarkers as well as 4 different inflammatory biomarkers and then vitamins and things like that fall in there. That is all comprehensive. And again, we should be checking this on women in their 30s and 40s because, again, at the end of the day, we're all taking care of women. And on OBGYN, we're trained to be women's primary healthcare providers. Yeah, we're not providing it. So this is a part of that. We're really good with them until they hit after their kids and after their reproduction. And then we're like, okay, just come in for your pap and mammogram. No, now is when this is the window of opportunity to get them and say, okay, now we're going to optimize you. So your menopause is going to go really smoothly. Because if you're aware of what's going to be coming down the pike, you're going to do something about it. You're not going to wait till you hit the wall with every symptom under the sun and then, come in pulling your hair out. If you know it's starting, I have 41-year-olds coming in and saying, I listened to what you said. I have these 5 symptoms and I'm here because I don't want them to get worse. I want to know what can I do now? So when they start, so they don't get that bad. That is the impact that we need to be making. And that's what I would, I want to arm women with this information to walk in and demand it. And again, if your provider blows you off or says, listen, no, you're too young, that's where you say, thank you so much. And you go elsewhere. Women have this loyalty. And again, I know my patients, and they're like, oh, well, we love him. He was really great. He delivered all my kids. I love that for you. But he's done being helpful to you, right? It doesn't matter. I've had both. I've seen some male doctors who are amazing at this and they're doing a great job. And I've seen some females who are like, you're not there. I was like, oh, come on. Have I not been talking enough where you should have picked up on this already? But we have this loyalty that we don't want to disappoint our provider, our obstetrician who's been with us through some of the most important, spectacular times of our lives. Yet at this point, you're not serving me anymore. So either they should be gracious enough to say, listen, this isn't my expertise. I think you need to seek a specialist. Or you should say, thank you so much for the time. I appreciate you, and go find yourself a specialist. I don't think, I think we're in that era now that we need to be in charge, women need to be in charge of their own health because we've been dismissed for so long. We have a lot of catching up to do.
We have so much catching up to do. And I am just, it's so exciting though, because the potential is so wide and vast. And the idea that women can go in and ask for, I'd really like an extensive metabolic panel. I'd really like, this is the kind of knowledge that we have been lacking. I don't think we've been lacking the wherewithal and the go get itness to want to feel better. Surely not. But knowing the things to ask for is so important. And I want to encourage everybody, definitely, we're going to link your website in the show notes, to to go in armed with that knowledge of like, what am I wanting to ask for blood work? And it's really, really wonderful also to hear that if you ask and your provider is a go, this is covered under insurance. This isn't even things that, are just for the wealthy. So that is really, really great to hear. I want to ask you, as far as longevity and living your best and most healthiest and happiest life, but not just the longest life, the one where you are feeling your best. Is there a practice or a supplement or an area where if you could snap your fingers, every woman in the world would be doing this and they would benefit in longevity?
So I kind of want to start with longevity, the terminology, because there are some out there who are like, that's just BS and this and that. Listen, I get it. I was not, I didn't know. I went to one of my first longevity conferences, and I'll never forget. My husband was like, "You're going to a woo-woo conference? Like, what are you doing? Like, this is, I'm like, I know, but I don't think that's what it is. I think it's changing." And this was, a while back. And it was what we're talking about today. The bells and whistles, the biohacking, all of that, that's a different ballgame. That is the cherry on top of the cherry of everything else. We are talking, imagine a pyramid, right? Your lifestyle, everything is at the base of that. Meaning, you need to be sleeping. And I'm not talking about 6 hours. I'm talking about like 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep. Do we all get it? No, but we got to work on that. If I have a few things to tell women that walk away with today, we got to optimize your sleep whatever way we can. Because that's when your body rests, your cells regenerate, and you're ready to go for the next day. So sleep is number one. We talked about nutrition. We talked about movement, exercise. You need to be moving every day, 7 days a week, even if it's walking. You can have some cardio in there, 90 to 150 minutes, whatever you want. You need those HIIT sessions really help. You need 2 to 3 days of resistance training. The rest, do your Pilates, do whatever you like doing, walk with a weighted vest, something every day. Stress management, easier said than done. Journaling, yoga, meditation, whatever have you that will work for you. These are the priorities right now. They're not what's out there. It's not sexy and no one, you go to the biohacking conferences, no one's talking about this. I mean, they are, but with added things, like buy this device and it's going to help you do this. Buy this bed. And I'm like, but it shouldn't be expensive. Okay. This is everything that we're talking about is covered by insurance or it's free. Like these lifestyle changes are up to you. And I'm sorry, but there's everything online is free. You can find nutrition plans. You can find everything. So, and then community building, right? You need to have your community around you where you're well aligned and remove negativity and things like that. These are the things that are going to help you thrive. Then you layer on some supplements. You don't really need 50,000 supplements. If you're having that nutritious, well-balanced diet, you may need 4 or 5 things to bridge the gap. And based on your lab work, you can figure out, do I need B vitamins or not? No? Okay, don't worry about it. Do I need a vitamin D? Most of us do. Even me living in Florida, we're deficient. So vitamin D, D3 plus the K2 for better absorption for your bones, for your immune system, for other pathways that it improves. Omega-3 fatty acids. Unless you're eating a ton of salmon and sardines, you're probably not getting enough. So that's the other one. A little bit of calcium if you need it, some magnesium, and then my favorite is creatine because we know it's not just for the muscles. It helps with cognition. It helps with your brain. So these are really what's going to move the needle. Now you do all of that and now you want to get a red light mask and you want to do X, Y, and Z. By all means, forge ahead. Get a red light sauna in your backyard and do all of that. And you want to do cold plunging, go for it. But none of that is going to work unless you do all of this.
Oh my God. The baseline is so vital and it's so not sexy and nobody can make money off of it because as you said, it does have that aspect of, it's free or it's covered under insurance. And, um, you know, thinking of everything else as icing, as how many cases do you see where women can genuinely improve their blood work simply by putting into place some of these more less sexy, like how are women being able to help their menopause just simply by getting more restful sleep at night?
Oh my gosh, you have no idea how much that can improve their daily quality of life. Because if they're not sleeping, then they're not going to be feeling like they're not going to handle the stressors the same, right? They're going to be more short-tempered, more irritable. Then they're exhausted, and yet they still have that laundry list of things that they have to accomplish the next day. We don't have the benefit of just taking the day off. You have kids. You got to take to school. You got to get them ready. You got to pick up after school activities. You have a job. You have to make dinner. We don't stop. That's the thing. And we have burdened and shouldered all of this for years without complaining. And we do, and we go, go, go until we hit the wall. So we need to take that time back. We need to be gracious with ourselves and say, listen, I need to put me first and take care of myself first because then I can give back to all of you. But if I'm not 100%, I cannot provide for you anymore because eventually you're going to give up.
So you already know we make the best workout gear, but one of our best products, our highest rated product on our website is actually our collagen. If you have not heard about Glow Up by CVG, you are missing out. There is almost 700 five-star reviews on this product because it is such an amazing supplement. Actually, looking at it today, there are only 2 1-stars that were meant to be 5 stars. They love the product, they hit the wrong amount of stars. This is one of our most popular products for a reason. It dissolves like no other collagen. It's type 1 and 3. You're going to have healthier skin, better joint mobility. Everything about this collagen makes it easy to put into your daily routine. So if you haven't tried Glow Up, get on cvg.com and make sure to add it to cart today. It's our best product. One of the really interesting things that I have read from you has to do with some natural ways to kind of boost your GLP-1.
Mm-hmm.
Is this real?
Mm-hmm.
Can you naturally do this without an injection? And is it worthwhile for all of us to sort of be thinking about these as best health practices if we can improve our GLP-1 naturally?
Mm-hmm. So that's kind of like I have a couple of different ways I start with my patients. First, we do the nutrition part and the exercise, and we put that into place. Then, on top of that, we can add in some of the different natural berberine and things like that that can boost your natural GLP-1 internally and see if we get the results that we're looking for. And again, you have to meet women where they're at. Some are eager to go with the injection and they're like, just give it to me now. And, because they're so frustrated and they've done everything they can. Others are gun shy. They're like, listen, I don't want to be attached to an injection for the rest of my life if I don't have to. And I think that taboo is still lingering that it's the easy way out and you're cheating and all of these things, so people don't want to succumb to that. So what do? We really hone in on the baseline, like do all of these things. Let's see how you do. And I do have a subset of patients that respond just as well to that they do to GLP-1s. So it's not that you have to, and that otherwise, if you don't, you're never going to lose the weight. Of course you can. It's just a matter of being invested enough in yourself to do that. A lot of women, we lose patience with things quickly. So that's kind of why I make everyone come back. We check in with them every 8 to 10 weeks. This is not like, here it is. Good luck. I'll see you next year. But what's going to happen by next year? They didn't do it. They definitely didn't do it. They gain more weight. They're more frustrated. And so, it's a vicious cycle. So with what I do now, it's a lot of hand holding. I literally either I telehealth with them or they're in and I'm like, so what do we do? How are we feeling? What's going on? How can we change? And so when you do that, you're going to get the results women want.
Oh my God, I can't. Everybody's out there being like, wait, what's her number? Wait, she's like a doctor that actually checks in more than once a year and like
we harass our
shoos you out. Oh my God. I'd love to be harassed by a healthcare specialist.
I think I'm good right now. I'm like, as long as you're good. Just so you know, they have my number because I want them to reach out to me with anything going off. Because what I've learned over the years is if you don't tell me, I don't know, and I can't guide you and tell you, hey, that's okay, continue. Because I assure you in a week or two, that symptom's going to go away. But rather, they text me and I'm like, it's fine. You're going to be okay. This is what it is. Can you hold out another week or so? And they're like, yeah. And then I follow up in a week or two. I'm like, oh no, it went away. You're right. We didn't stop treatment. We continued. So these are the specifics of what is necessary at this point for women's health. So, my practice is here in Miami, right? I don't do telehealth across state lines just because I think it's more of an in-person conversation. My telehealths are like for follow-ups, like a quick touch-in. Hey, we did your labs. Everything looks wonderful. These are the few things I would change. That's it. But luckily, we have online platforms that are really catering to women now. MIDI Health, Alloy, all of these platforms have different varieties of this. And you have their number. You text your provider and they text you right back. So we are doing the work. It's slow, but we're getting there. And more people are getting doctors coming out of training are now learning all of this. I'm training young doctors at conferences to do this because now they're hungry for it. And eventually it'll be part of the curriculum across primary care, OBGYN, endocrine, all of these programs really in training is where this should be starting, not after the fact. So we were working backwards in a system that was kind of broken.
The hope that you're giving me is just, it's just been so long seemingly that, this hasn't been readily available to women and they've just been suffering in silence with fans and all kinds of crazy woo-woo things that their aunt said, might work. And this is what it's all about. And I couldn't be more excited. This was an incredibly eye-opening conversation, and I just cannot thank you enough for the work that you're doing with women, for taking the time to get out there and get to a larger audience of women who are so ripe for this. If you could say to women who are experiencing some symptoms where they feel like, I don't know, is this a time to sort of go in, or should I you know what I mean? Um, Tell me what the benefit would be for a woman who's maybe thinking they might be, but maybe has been told, oh, you're a little young for that. Or they looked it up and it's like, well, maybe not yet. Where would we start?
I'd recommend finding a provider who's well-versed, who's not going to minimize what you're experiencing, and start with a baseline. Because let's say you go in, like my 41-year-old patient, she's not on hormone therapy, but hey, we're changing her lifestyle right now. We're working on her lifestyle modifications, adding in the weights now so she can build more muscle quickly because we need that currency. That's like the currency of, longevity. And you want to bank as much of it as early as you can, right? We don't start saving for our financial retirement at 65, right? We've been banking it since we started working. Why would you not apply the same concept to your health? The earlier you start, the earlier you can start banking all of these things that are going to help you live longer, healthier, with more movement and vitality. And that way you're not a burden on your kids or your family, right? So I don't think there's any early time to start. The earliest they can get to me or somebody else, like let's say they come in at 35, they're done having their kids, they're not worried about birth control. Oh my gosh, this is like the ideal woman for me. I'm like, where do I start with you? Okay. So it's really exciting when I get them that young and they don't have symptoms. I give them the symptom questionnaire because I want them to be aware of what could be happening. They take it home and I say, just start marking it off as it starts to build. And then when it's really bad or you're having all of them and you start noticing it's changing you and your quality of life and you're not yourself, I want you to come back because now we're going to treat it before everything goes haywire on you. So the sooner, the better.
That's everything that I want for people to know about longevity right there is the sooner the better. And I think that was an amazing analogy with the retirement because that is something that speaks to people. When by the time you're ready to retire, it's a little too late to start thinking about that. And not that there is a too late point with longevity, but it is an earlier is better kind of situation. And I always hate to see women sort of have their life absolutely annihilated before they want to say, maybe it could be time to speak to somebody. Maybe it could be time to take a minute for myself and go research and see somebody. It's just tragic when there's been so many years where they could have been doing things to prevent this level.
And it's not, I mean, listen, we're all going to go through menopause, right? Like if you're born with an ovary, you're going to go through it. The question I have is, how do you want to go through it? Do you want to kind of ease into it? Or do you want to hit the wall, fall off a cliff, and then try and find your way back? Which is what we've been doing, but I think we're done with that. Like, no, and the other part of it is a lot of these diseases that are going to get us at the end, they didn't start at menopause. They've been building since your 20s and 30s and 40s. So that osteoporotic fracture at like 70 started in your 40s, building, underlying. You don't feel it, right? Your heart disease that you had, that heart attack, started in your 30s. The little plaque buildup, you don't feel that until what woman has had any kind of cardiology evaluation at 35? None. Even at 50, no one's doing it. We have to ask for it. So it's having knowledge, it's understanding, it's hearing these conversations saying, I'm going to go look for a cardiologist. I'm going to ask for an EKG. I'm going to get a calcium score. And again, they're all covered by your insurance. And even if they're not, a lot of hospitals, when it's Heart Health Month in February, they do a calcium score for like $99. Non-invasive testing. It's insane the things that you can find if you want to look for it. Bone density.
That is so great.
No, sorry, one more. The bone density, when's the time that everybody does a DEXA? 65. You're already behind the 8 ball. We start losing bone in our 40s. And the trajectory is really steep right after menopause when you lose all that estrogen. So what's happened? I have 40-year-olds with osteopenia. And if I wait till 65 to check it, they would have been osteoporotic by then already. So we're missing the boat.
Except we don't have to.
It's all manageable. A bone density, a DEXA is a couple $100.
I think that the women that we have as listeners are very, very health conscious people, and they are just sort of like everybody else, like where, it's where am I going to get the time? Where am I going to get the funds? Where am I going to get the knowledge? And I think that knowing this baseline of like, as you said, like there are places during Heart Healthy Month that you can get, this is how I got my mother a calcium scan and how we, potentially caught something extremely early. She got one for free during Heart Health Month. just and knowing what panels to ask for, and knowing that a DEXA scan at 30, even if you are feeling wonderful and great, is still an incredibly powerful tool to tell you how you're going to feel in 30 years. That's a beautiful, beautiful new way to look at healthcare, and I think it's a really hopeful way because it doesn't have to be the steep cliff that
Right.
we've all been falling off of for a long time. It doesn't have to be that way, and nobody wants it to be that way.
And to be fair, this isn't a decline. Like, we're not going down without a fight. Like, listen, the decades women spend 40% of their life in postmenopause. Let that sink in. Like, that's a lot. We're not done. A lot of women are rebuilding themselves in their 50s, second, third careers. I rebuilt in my 50s, started from scratch, rebuilt it. So we're not going anywhere. So if I'm going to be here doing all of this, I'm going to be feeling good doing it.
Might as well.
Might as well.
Okay, so if you are in the South Florida area, absolutely, I would highly implore you to have an in-person visit. But if someone wanted to connect with you, follow you on social media, just be a part of the wealth of knowledge that you are, where can our listeners hear more from you?
So I'm really mostly active on social media on Instagram. So it's my full name, Dr. Jila Senemar. And I do a lot of educational things there, and I host community events. So those will also be promoted through my Instagram as well as my website, which is gilamd.com. And you can see the previous events that we've held here in South Florida. And usually I do about 2 events a year that draws between 300 to 400 women, and lots of different experts come in forward to have all these different conversations. So that's where I'm at right now. And I have a podcast as well that, we need to talk about. And I do a lot of conversations with colleagues on all different variety. It's called Her Time, Her Health. And again, I'm doing all I can to get as much information out there on these platforms, just so women have the education at hand to go in knowing what to ask for.
You are a game changer. You are moving the needle in ways that it has taken decades for any movement of any needle in these areas. And we will have every resource that you listed in the show notes. Encourage women to hit up your website and get those metabolic panels and blood work specifically that you have listed. Hit up her podcast for more information on this, because this is something that is going to happen to every woman no matter what.
Right.
If you have an ovary, you are going to need this knowledge. So let's be advocates for ourselves and seek out the game changers that are doing the work in the field. And Dr. Jila, you are absolutely a leader in this field. So thank you so much for this. It's been invaluable for our audience. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. And, this is a work that needs to be done in conjunction with everybody, such as yourselves and with your platform. And together, I think women are going to get the information and care that they deserve and that they haven't had for so long. So thank you for doing what you do.
That they deserve. They deserve.
Mhm.
Thank you.